All right, everybody, welcome back to Coffee Talk. This week, I got a guest that I've known for a long time. We've had some fun times together, and through, I'd say more my dad's persuasion than mine, we got you to move from the beach of Huntington Beach, California, looking at the ocean, seagulls in the air. It's such nice weather, they don't even make air conditioning in the houses. We got you to leave that to come to Viva, Las Vegas, Nevada, and now we're virtually neighbors. I'm talking about my good friend, sales expert, business connoisseur, and just all-around good guy, Dave Timlin. Dave, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
All right, so welcome to Coffee Talk.
Thanks.
You know the deal. You've seen a few episodes. We write on coffee cups around here. It's a little bit crazy, but I think you'd appreciate crazy. So I wrote the word patience, right? Just sometimes you got to be patient. I think in this cyber, ultra technology world, you got to be patient. You know, we want things so fast, which I get it. I can FaceTime anyone on planet Earth and get a hold of them from here to Brazil, from here to Switzerland, from here to Australia in 30 seconds. So I get the need that we want things fast, but when it comes to business, achievement of goals, physical fitness, it takes time. So you got to remind yourself, be patient. What about you? What do you want to write on your coffee cup? Something to kind of symbolize what you're thinking today.
Along those same lines, ability and willingness, right?
Ability and willingness.
So in this case, willingness to be patient, right? That instant gratification gets us all. We're barraged with anything we want, as you say, right? I think we're all able. We're just not all willing to put in the work that it takes to get to that big dream or that goal. That's all unique to all of us. So I guess my word would be willingness.
Willingness. Right. All right. So write willingness on your coffee cup. That's interesting. I mean, going back to instant gratification. You and I are both married, and I'm not trying to be sexist or push the gender card here, but as far as my life's concerned, women love to shop on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
They love it. I think for hundreds of years now, women have loved shopping. But now they can get anything delivered to their doorstep within an hour. It's nuts. It's amazing. I love the technology, but it does change people's ability of thinking, of patience, of giving things time. So I'm glad we're on the same page there. So you said something interesting, right? Willingness. Willingness to be patient. Willingness to put in the work. Elaborate. Like business-wise. What does that mean? What should people be willing to do?
Well, I think the biggest challenges in today's world, at least it has been for me, right, is access. Access to everything. You talk about Amazon, right? Every day I trip over a package at my front door. And and it's something that we need, by the way.
Yeah.
We need them all, right? But just access to information, we're just barraged. How do you know what's the right thing? And when you're thinking instant gratification, right, you think you're going to go from here to the Kardashians in a week, and that's not going to happen. And I'd ask you to reconsider if it's the Kardashians. Story for another day.
Yeah.
But you get the point, right? We all think we're going to have a grill. We're gonna a diamond grill, right?
Grill.
In about 6 months.
Shiny new car.
It's not how it works, right?
$1 million status.
Have a willingness to roll up your sleeves. Have a willingness to look for the right teachers. And I don't mean just people, right? Situations, circumstances, events in your life are great teachers. The failures that you have are great teachers. Have a willingness to do the research, right? To know what you're doing in the first place. There's a reason that, I think 80% approximately go out of business, new businesses, within just a few years.
Yeah.
It's over.
Sure.
It's done. So it's important to know your outcome, right? But when I say willingness, and I remember when I first started doing trainings, and you know my background, no reason for it here, but I lived in a car when I was a kid, and then I didn't really figure it out till I was 27. But at 27, sitting there broke again, right? Not really understanding completely why I was broke again, and actually really knowing, right, who's responsible for it. Then I'm sitting there in my underwear at 3 a.m. When I made some decisions, and and part of that came from authenticity. It's a willingness to really look at myself and look at the truth, right? Which is no easy task for any of us, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to look in the mirror and go, okay, you blew it multiple times. And if you keep going, right, you are going to blow it worse and worse and worse. So I started listening to stuff, right? And I couldn't read or write very well, which was embarrassing, right? But I listened and I listened.
Which was interesting. Like, you literally could not read or write at a high level.
Oh no, it was pretty bad.
It was like
right?
elementary.
I couldn't use a computer. I could get by, right? Nobody knew, right? And I wasn't going to tell them, look, I'm basically illiterate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had my share of challenge, and I was pretty angry as well on top of that. So, because it was everybody else's fault, it wasn't mine, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't have a willingness to listen to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
But we talked about this a million times before, right? You get to a place sometimes in life where you have to, right? It's decision time. Like, are they gonna come get my car again? Am I gonna go live in a Volkswagen again? Because I did that when I was 16.
But you know what? Like, I think this is important for people to hear, because we're gonna talk about some cool stuff. You've had some, crazy successes. But here's how I measure success, right? And I want to set you up to fill people in a little bit more about you. Here's how I measure success. It's not how many dollars you have in the bank, because if you're like Donald Trump, someone gave you $2 million to get started. You have a different starting point than somebody else.
Yeah.
I have a client of mine, amazing guy named Herman Gomez. Really nice. Just a gem of a human being. And I won't go too into the story because it's his story to tell. But he's told me the story about immigrating from Mexico as a kid, with a single mother, them crawling through the tunnel, getting picked up in a tiny red car, living in a studio apartment, no money. Brutal. Now, I won't even talk about his dollars, but now he's got a kid in college, son in college. He's got a daughter that gets to train jiu-jitsu and compete in tournaments every weekend. Him and his wife live a comfortable lifestyle. Just got a new truck. From where he started to where he is now, that's huge.
Enormous.
Crawling through a tunnel to get to America, to that's success. That's and he still wants to get farther and farther. He's still pretty young, but that's success right there. So with you, talk about where you started, man, because that's big time. That's important for people to know.
Yeah, so I really, through that mind, right, through that brain as a 16-year-old kid, I just wanted to have a good time, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to school. I didn't like authority.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of partying, a lot of all the things that come along with that. And the more trouble I got in, the more I learned to sell my way out of it. But at one point, you can't sell your way out of everything. And it was much safer for me at one point to move into the Volkswagen, because I came from a pretty strict family of disciplinarians, and they weren't buying what I was selling anymore, right?
Got it.
They'd had enough. I'd cried wolf 60 zillion times, and it became safer to live in a Volkswagen. So I moved in with a roommate into a Baja Bug, and we partied. And there was plenty of times when we weren't partying. We were pondering, right? Because we got some clothes in the back seat. There was literally, the floorboard was rusted out on in my bedroom, which was the passenger seat.
And we say, like,
I'm not
car.
kidding.
This is a car.
This is a car.
You have a car and a roommate.
Well, Chris, we also stayed in. Yeah. His name was Warren. Warren is probably slightly more insane than I was. So he would distract, and we would steal food to eat. Right. We lived in vacant houses until, like, we had a vacant house that we used to stay in. A friend of ours, their parents had moved out, and one night it got really cold, and we burned the furniture in the garage. We forgot to open the flue, so the house filled with smoke, and the police came. It was a series of just moments of, when we're doing great, right, we party, right? But when we're not doing so great, we ponder. We did a lot of pondering during moments like that, when it got cold or there was a storm, right, and the water's coming in the car, and so tough drill.
What would you ponder?
what have I done? Right?
Yeah.
I'm 16, 17, what have I done? So you think you're going to rule the world at one point, that a magic fairy is going to stop by, right? And you're going to be rich and it's all going to be fun. In the interim, I'll just party through it.
Yeah.
So a lot of pondering on, and there's some scary times, very frightening times to be out by yourself with no place to go. Or at least that was that's how it felt.
Yeah.
Right? So I certainly understood the have to, if you're going to get some things done, you better have a willingness to make some changes, right?
Yeah.
And I went through times when I did really well, right? I got out of that situation. Some kind friends helped me, made myself accountable, and found other folks that were willing to hold me accountable to some things. But at 27, right, it got to a pushing point again, because I would still do that party and ponder, and I wanted what everybody wants. I wanted instant gratification. Where's my roles, right?
Yeah.
Entitlement, United States, right?
Where's my
the Beverly
mansion?
Hillbillies?
Where's my Rolex?
Where I'm shooting at some crude up through the ground. Come on, right?
Yeah.
And I realized I got the have to, which we all get at one point in life, right? Hopefully we get it sooner than just before we pass, right? I wish I'd have done it, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
But I listened to some stuff, and something that really stood out to me was the trainer that I was listening to said, there's 4 basic things. It's not rocket science, right? Decide, know your outcome. What do you really want? Make a decision, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I want to be rich, right?
Yeah.
I want money. I want some bling. I want people to think I'm cool, right? The second thing is have a plan. The third thing is be flexible with your plan, because your plan's going to go out the window. Your plan doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing is never, ever, ever give up. And
Cool.
that one got me. I'm like, okay.
Cool.
So I'll just never, ever give up. From that, I wrote a letter to a company that wouldn't hire me because they said I was too aggressive, and rightfully so. I was a pain in the butt. Said I'd work for free. And after a lot of no's, they said yes. And my career went like this. And part of that process was I just worked. I didn't know what else to do, right? Yeah. And this is back in the day. I'm pretty old now, right? So back in the day, I didn't have, I couldn't Google what's next, right? I couldn't Google,
couldn't YouTube.
I couldn't Google Tony Robbins, like what would Tony say to do, right? I didn't have, and on top of that, even if I did have it, Chris, I didn't know how to use a computer.
Yeah.
And I was scared to tell anybody.
Yeah.
Right? So I just worked.
Yeah.
I worked every single day. I still partied all night long. So there was 2 Daves, the one that went to work and then the one that didn't.
Yeah.
But I would work for 30 days, depending on how long the month was, take a day or 2 off and just work, right? But through that process, I learned so much, right? I learned about gratitude. I learned about appreciation. I learned about leadership. I learned about there is no entitlement anywhere, right? That's not how it works. You've got to put in the work. You've got to be willing to fail to succeed, right? And more importantly, it's those little things that you do every day, those things that become habits like blinking.
Yeah.
That make the difference to add up to those amazing big moments.
The success habits, because you're you're very strict about like your morning routines, your evening routines, what you put in your mind, right?
Yeah, I don't want to live in a Volkswagen.
Wow. That's powerful, man. That's really powerful.
Fear's a good driver, don't you think?
Right? Amazing, yeah.
So many people and so many
scary.
teachers.
It's hard, but it's an amazing. If you can persevere through that fear and that anxiety that comes with it, I think it's more powerful than anything.
One of my teachers once said, it's just a physiological storm in your body, right? It's never as good or as bad as you think it is, as we make it to be. We make it this enormous thing. There was all that work add up to all those disciplines they're natural to me today. They weren't back then, right? They were hard, right? It sucked. Yeah. Right? And fortunately, I surrounded myself with better people along the way and better teachers and better events. But there was those big moments. So people were going to find out at one point, right, that I couldn't read and write or use a computer, right? Yeah. And I'm a pretty gregarious human being, right? I can be a little over the top. I can be extremely over the top, right? And I can be an ass, right?
You can be an ass a little bit,
I'll push the envelope. I've always been a pusher.
Yeah.
And always believed that I could sell myself out of it somehow, right? So there was a situation that just came to mind, right? I had worked my way up, and a company had bought the company I worked for. And I learned a lot of lessons on the way. That company had gone broke, the original one, right? Literally at Christmas time, there was no product to sell. It was crazy, and we had to find ways, creative ways to sell stuff when we had no stuff. But we did that for a year. In a leadership position, I learned a lot, right? We still hired, we still fired. We found ways to create product, take broken product, fix it. And this was a high-end electronics place. I know nothing about electronics, by the way. My friends wouldn't even give me a screwdriver, right? Because they would worry I'd hurt myself.
Yeah.
But anyway, did very well. The new company that bought us was astounded at what we'd accomplished. It's why they bought us. And in a leadership role, they brought me to another leadership role in Los Angeles. That's when I first moved to LA permanently. And story for another day. I lived in Hollywood behind the Ralphs at one point, but that was much more early on. So I'm in LA, and I didn't like my boss. I didn't like him at all. Mike, we'll just call him Mike.
And this is the new boss.
This is the new boss, the new ownership, right?
Not doing well.
I heard him on the way out after they interview everybody, right? And we had been through a lot. We had no product, right? I'm scathing past it because it's just not worth the time, but it was challenging. A lot of people were just tired, right? Yeah. Just to make that company battle just for one more day, just to stay open, right? And at one point we were on a trajectory huge, right? We were all gonna make it rich.
Yeah. So company comes in, buys that business.
He interviews me, and I can tell he's not super pumped up with what I'm saying, right? And I heard him as he walks out the hallway door out of my office say, "That's the first guy I'm gonna fire," and the door closed right behind him. And I'm thinking, all this work, all this stuff I've done, right? This guy doesn't know I lived in a Volkswagen, and I'm pissed, right? I'm entitled again, right? Ego exploding. Do you know who I am, right?
Of course.
So I'm going to get him. So a few months later, anyway, they moved me up to Los Angeles. I've got an opportunity for a leadership role. Everybody in that new company in Los Angeles thinks we're all prima donnas, right? Who is this guy? We've been around 15 years. You guys almost failed. We had to buy you, right? Who is this guy? So I had some proving to do.
Yeah.
So at one point, people are going to find out, right, that I can't read, write, and use a computer. And I'm pressing this guy. He's my boss. He's my direct boss, right? And I'm pressing him every day. You should do this. You should do that. Why aren't you doing this? Ego exploding, right? I'm entitled. That whole arrogance. And he's like, all right, Dave. And we'll do that. And I went into my office, and he brings in a packet. He goes, you do all the trainings. And he said it with an expletive and turned around and walked out of the room. And I'm like, oh, boy. We always think we can do it better than the guy ahead of us, right?
Until we have to do
it better than the guy ahead of us, right? And I hadn't made my bones yet. I just thought I had.
Yep.
Right? And now I've got to read, write, use a computer, and I've got to do it in front of the entire company for a company meeting and do it better than the guy that I was so arrogant with. So I go through all the training that I have exposure to at the time, and I'm trying to learn to read better, write better, everything. I'm doing these weird swoosh patterns that I learned, right? Trying to get my brain around it, and I'm driving to this event. All the ownership's there. Dave Timlin's going to speak, right? And I presented myself as the man, and I was doing some numbers, right? There's no doubt that I had some influence, right?
And what were you doing? Sales.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
What were you guys selling?
This was high-end electronics.
Okay.
Which, again, I don't know a lot about, right? But you don't need to know a lot about what you're doing. But it's purposeful, and you say patience, right? And I say willingness. My willingness to learn was probably down here, right? And my patience was probably lower than that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now I've got to have to. What am I going to do? I'm going to be in front of And by the way, here's something else that nobody knew, because I was such a beast on the floor, sales floor. I was scared to death. I don't know how to I do know how to describe scared. Imagine cutting your arm and jumping into a pool of sharks to speak in public.
It's a good example, man.
And they're swimming, and you're picturing those. It was so bad, Chris, and I worked my butt off to be able to present, right? And I get there, and I am sweating, and thank God I was wearing a suit, right? So nobody could see, because I just drenched. And there was a shoehorn set up, and all of the management was sitting around, right? I was training management that day. All of the owners standing in the background, right? This is a company that they want to bring public within 5 years. And the new kids coming in, right? And I'm working with my very good friend Rob, who's sitting next to me, and he can tell that I'm about, right? I was sitting in my car trying to figure out what hospital I could say I was at before I went up. But there was no hiding. I put myself in this situation. We're walking up around the shoehorn, and I stepped on his heels. I was so close to him because I wanted, somehow he was going to save me from this.
Yeah.
Somebody had to.
Who,
right?
Rob,
right?
Yeah.
Because they called us up, right? Everybody's clapping, and I walk all the way around the shoehorn and get to the front. Rob opens it up. And I had written the whole training, right? Yeah. And he had helped me with some spot, obviously a bunch of it, but meaning with writing and stuff, because I still hadn't admitted yet. So he goes to hand me the microphone because it's my turn, and I stepped back, and I wouldn't take the mic. And I just stood there. What seemed like I can see the fin, right? It's just a matter of time. Please eat me. I'm begging you to eat me. I just can't take. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm sweating. My hands are shaking, so I can't pick up our notes. I don't use notes anymore. Yeah. But back in the day, we had a PowerPoint. And I literally, because they would see, it was shaking so bad I couldn't see what I wrote. Wow. It was so bad. And I wouldn't take the mic. So he repeats what he says, realizes I'm done. Right? And this is going on for like 5 minutes. And I don't mean that. I felt like 5 minutes.
No,
right?
It was 5 minutes.
This was 5 or 10 minutes of him talking and me standing behind him, just standing there when it's my turn.
Man,
he doesn't even know my part of the stuff.
Oh, no.
He finally goes back to hand it to me.
I'm like anxious to hear this.
Chris, it was so bad, right? He hands me the mic again, and I take it, and I'm holding the mic, right? And I can feel it shaking.
Yeah.
And you know when and everybody's had a moment when they're scared, right? When they're just so scared.
Of course.
And I don't know what happened. It's all such a blur, but I took the mic, and I'm shaking, and I could hear my voice cracking, and I felt like I could see everybody looking at me like, you idiot, you arrogant,
you know what,
piece of crap, you and all your angst, right, and all your selling, and all your telling us, and your checklist, and your discipline and accountability, and you're going to stand up here and cry like a child? Really? You're going to do this? These are salespeople. Right? These are ownerships that came from nothing, right? The owner started it in a garage, right? And now he's got a company he's going to take public. Yeah. And they brought me in, right? You're the guy that helped fix it over there. You can do this here. And I'm shaking like a little girl, right?
Yeah.
Something happened, and it changed. And I don't remember the next 2 hours. Here's what I remember. When I went to walk out, everybody stood up, and I got a standing ovation. Owners shaking my hands and hugging me on the way out.
Yeah.
Those little things every single day add up to moments like that.
Yeah.
And that was a success for me, a success that guided me. But I had to be willing, right? I had to, right? Everybody makes a New Year's resolution. Most people don't keep them. Are you willing to do the stuff?
Are you willing to be a little
right?
slower? Are you willing to step in front of those people? That's it. It's almost hard for people to understand if you've never done it before. But that like level of nervousness, where and you were actually at the probably not maybe not the first one, but maybe the biggest one so far, top 2 for sure, of those moments in my life. So I start direct sales, right? You're one of the people
Yeah,
that bought some products for me. And remember I said, all right, everyone, about 10 people in the room, 10 you, a couple other friends, bought some products for me. No one really, like, did anything in the beginning, but you guys just helped me, bought some products. I'm 21, you guys wanted to support me, you saw me go from this 19-year-old to this 21, trying to make some money now. Bought some energy drinks for me. I said, all right, we're doing a meeting Tuesday at 7. Show up, bring everyone. Now, at this point, like, I've never sold anything. I've never done a presentation. My only live speaking was when my dad would be doing a seminar and say, Chris, do a couple breathing exercises in front of these people. And that was like 30 seconds. I had no experience. And for 2 years, I was going to direct sales meetings and learning things and studying comp plans. Tuesday night, and I know you were there because you've joked about it with me before, but at like 6:55, when I peek my head through the door to see how many people were in there, there's 80 people in the room.
Yeah.
10 of you turned into 80 in a week. Now, the other 70 don't know me. A lot of them were your friends, right? Don't know me. Don't want to be there on a Tuesday night. Who's this 20? I'm the youngest kid in the room by far. It's not even close. And we're selling energy drinks. Well, behind the scenes, I'm like, oh my God, drinking energy drinks. And I remember you bringing it up a few years later, like, man, you were all over the place.
Yeah.
But I don't remember anything.
No.
I blacked out.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. I remember maybe a minute before, I went, why didn't I go to college?
Any place.
Why?
There has to be some place else.
I'm talking to myself in third person. Chris, you're an idiot. Why did you do this? This is, they're gonna boo you. You're a lot of profanity in my mind. Just not the best prep talk going into a public speaking engagement. Totally blacked out. I don't remember anything. I don't remember eye contact. I don't remember who was there. I don't remember anything. But I remember out of the 70 guests, 35 people bought a package for $500. And that's when I kind of learned the same lesson you're talking about. That fear, that like level, you want to die. You want the shark. You're like,
I agree.
I'd rather die.
Death is better.
Why did I do this? Why did I, personal development is stupid. This is all the thoughts going on in my head. Tony Robbins is a liar.
Yeah.
My dad is a psychopath. My just you're like everything
man.
you can imagine.
Yeah.
I hate the world.
Why have they done this
I'm
to
never
me?
leaving why did people do this to me? Everything you could imagine. Why did I wear this stupid suit? Everything. Every single thing that you can imagine
so awesome.
goes through your head, right? But when it's something that you're so passionate about, selling, for example, right, which we'll get into in a second. For me, it was direct sales. I'd studied that for 2 years. Every week, you were there, right?
Worked your butt off, man.
Every week, almost every day for 2 years studying that business.
You made me laugh. That was funny.
So when that moment comes and you're nervous like that, what I've noticed is that's when the magic's about to happen. And I can almost guarantee you, I know the rest of that story, that's when the magic started to happen, right?
That is when the magic happened.
For me, that 12 months later, I'd made money. I was speaking on stage to 10,000 people. I had a new Mercedes-Benz. I had the success, the fame.
Like, and you were how old, Chris?
I was 21 at that meeting, 22 by the time I, quote-unquote, made it.
I wish I would have learned it at 22.
Yeah.
Right? But you're right. That's where the magic, magic moments. That's it.
Yeah. It was so terrible. So when you're saying the shark, you're like, oh, I'd rather die.
I would have.
Eat me.
Yeah, please.
I'll disappear. I'll never show up on planet Earth again, so I get it. So I want to ask you something. Because you said something interesting that I think you're almost going to contradict when I ask this question. So you said, selling electronics, and I didn't really know anything about it, and you don't need to, which is right. Like, to sell, you don't need to be an expert on it. You need to know the ins and outs a little bit, but you don't need to be an expert. And that's where I see a lot of people hurt in business. They think, I need to know more, I need to know more, I need to know. You need to know enough, but ultimately it's action. But I want to ask you a question. How important is it in sales when you have a product that you do believe in, that you do know a lot about, that you are passionate about? How much, because you've sold everything under the sun, how much of a difference does that make in going to work every day and your income and everything like that when you have a product that you are passionate about?
It's certainly a game changer, right? And when you know you're selling a good product, it's 1,000 times better than trying to sell something you don't believe in.
Yeah.
Right? I believe that you have to believe in your product. By the same token, right? You don't have to know everything about that product.
Sure.
You have to know what the product value is to the customer, and do something that's fair for them. At the end of the day, it's people.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the changer, right? Your dad talks about belief, right? Meaning. For me, what I've learned, because it used to be swing for the fences, right? I wanted the dollars, right? I wanted your dollars, and I'm going to find a way to get them from you, right? The salespeople that you would avoid when you're walking through the store, that was me, right? But I was going to get you anyway, right? Yeah. That bad scenario, the dirty word sales, I was that guy for a long time.
Back in the day when you were younger,
But once you realize, right, that you're not there to save the world from bad electronics or widgets and wadgets and whatever you're selling, construction, it just doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you've got a good product that you believe in, awesome, right? Believe in the people. Do good with the people, right? I told you the story for another day, but I had a guy that was just insane. Nobody would even help him, and I helped him on
the crazy guy.
The crazy guy. I helped him, and made lots of money on him, and everybody was scared of him. They weren't scared of him when he was writing checks, right? They were like, Dave, you're lucky. Yeah, you're always lucky. But at the end of the day, all these months, and then we had blown it on a car. He had a crazy car, right? It was a Batmobile that was an old Opel, and we had blown it, and I had to drive it, and I was embarrassed, and it was hot and sweaty, and I rolled up all the windows, right? It was all about me and the arrogance, right? But I wanted this guy's dough. It took, and he had followed me to my new career and so forth, and we had done a lot of work on this car. I never asked this guy about his family, what he did for a living, nothing. I just thought he was a crazy guy, and he was writing checks, and I was making money, right? And I believed I was the best there is, therefore I am.
Of course.
Right? And then one day, he comes in to pick up his car after we'd blown it really bad, and he's got this beautiful wife and a couple of kids. I didn't know her wife and kids. I just thought they were people that came with the crazy guy, right? Why are you with the crazy guy with the weird car, right? It was a crazy car.
It was a Batmobile.
It was a Batmobile. It was an Opel GT, which was called a poor man's Corvette, right? And it old school. It had little Batman tags all over it. It had a head of a Batman that frightened me. I mean, it was real. It was scary real.
And he'd spend in the 80s like tens of thousands of dollars on you guys, putting speakers in.
All this custom work. And throughout all this was early on in my career, I never asked him any questions, Chris. I didn't care.
Yeah, just take the money and go.
This was prior to the experience of I want to jump in a pool of sharks. Much early on. But I asked him one day, I said, what do you do with this car? Like, I finally just said it, like, you're nuts, right? And I'm paraphrasing myself. I was a little bit nicer, right? I wanted him to keep writing checks. You're nuts, right? Why? What are you doing with this car? He said, well, that's my car, which I didn't realize. It was an Infiniti sitting outside. And he said, that's my wife and my 2 kids, and we take the car over to the Cancer Institute for children up the street and give them some pleasure for a little while and let them play in the car. And I'm like, so to answer your question, right? When the student's ready, the teacher will appear, right? It's not just that product or belief in your product, which is obviously important. It's the relationships that you make.
For sure.
Right? It's how you take care of people. It's authenticity. It's if you're going to sell something, do it for the right reasons and be proud to be a salesman. Right? And more importantly, remember those relationships and earn the right to ask and get the sale. Right?
I like
do
that.
The work.
Earn the right.
Be willing. Earn it. Earn it.
Yeah.
There is no magic fairy is going to drop you off $1 million. It ain't going to happen. Right? It's not very likely. Read the odds on the back of your lottery ticket. Not going to happen. Do the work. Take care of people. Do the right thing and be willing to do the work and be patient. Delayed gratification. And those moments of success, like what you talked about. So it may have been a scary moment you don't remember, right? But you can trace, I heard a trainer say this once, you can trace every good thing in your life to the bad event in which it germinated. I wanted to kill myself, right? So did you before you went up. That 5 minutes when you saw 80 people in the audience, would you replace that for all the money in the world?
No.
Be willing to do the work to get there.
Yeah, you got to eat it a couple times.
I call it eating the frog.
Eat the frog. Yeah, you're actually the one that I've talked about that on videos, articles.
Yeah,
that's a great philosophy. Eat the frog. All right, so you said something. I kind of want to remind me to segue into this because, at least since I've known you, and you're 52 now, right?
Yeah. Thanks for telling everybody, Chris.
You look, for those listening, you look 24. For those watching, you look 52. No, I'm just kidding, man. You look good. But you said something. When the student is ready, the master, the teacher will appear. Exactly. How important was it when you met my dad, Chris McGarryhan Sr., as a mentor? Obviously, you guys are good friends as well. But as a teacher, so to speak, because that's obviously when I met you. I met you after you even met my dad, and I've seen all the change from the day I met you to today. How important? Because a lot of people watching this, they know who my dad is. They've seen the episodes. They've seen him in speaking engagements, whatever it may be, but they haven't had the same relationship that you've had with him. You know, you guys are tight. You guys are close. He literally persuaded you to move to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So talk about the impact of having a mentor, more specifically my dad, like how much that changes in your life in business, your life in family, your life in everything.
It's
the power of mentorship.
Game changer, right? It's everything, right? Part of the reason that I think most folks give up on those New Year's resolutions, right, is accountability, right?
Oh, for sure.
I have my own nonprofit now where I help a lot of ladies that have been in tough situations that have children, right? And it's hard for them to understand as well, but that accountability piece, right? It's what you do, right? It's like, huge. Please stop it. Do not spend $400,000 on something you don't know without doing any research or doing any work. Your risk can be very low. Make $20. Then we'll talk about $500,000. Right? So it's you
saw me literally just do that before we started this.
Absolutely. The expectation from your dad, right? From the get, right? And there's no gray area with Chris. No. Right? And I love him. He's great. He's a good friend. He's been a terrific mentor. But he's truth, right?
Sometimes truth hurts.
Honest. And he expects that from any of his friends and family. That's just an expectation. Or, please don't waste my time. And he wasn't buying what I was selling, right? But here's what he bought. He knew I had a good heart. He knew I cared about people. He knew I cared about learning and being better, right? He knew I had at least the beginnings of character, right? I heard it described once as following through on a decision long after the excitement and the emotion of the moment has passed. He knew I had character. I don't know how he knew that, by the way I presented myself sometimes. But it was authenticity.
Well, he understands people. Right?
Oh, no doubt. Better than anybody I've ever met. But it was authenticity. It was telling the truth. Right? Nobody can help anybody unless you're honest, because you have to feed through too much crap. There's not enough time to get through all the crap we all present, because we're all selling all day,
of course.
But we're all selling this image instead of who we really are. Right? So to answer your question, I think imperative for me to go to any next level. The authenticity that I learned, the honesty that I learned, the value of a relationship at a level I never understood before. And still learning. I'm always learning. Humbly learning, which was a real challenge for me, right? That arrogance that came with being good at what I do and selling a lot of stuff.
Of course.
And acting out in certain ways most of my life. That arrogance certainly kept me from being humble. And just as important, I think if there was a word, Chris, accountability. right?
Absolutely.
It's what people, I think, reach out to people that have the results to prove that they can help you, right? Because that's a big issue. We're barraged with so much crap. Everybody's a teacher. Everybody's an expert. You can Google such and he'll tell you to do such and set this timeline, and you will be a 20 gazillionaire tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, you're not. There are 550,000 homeless people in the United States right now. By comparison, there's 76,000 approximately millionaires/billionaires in the Silicon Valley area. There's a big gap in between, brother, and it's accountability. Accountability.
Yeah. So here's what I wanted to ask you that specifically, right? Because my dad helps, when I say a lot, kind of an opinion, but, helps a good amount of people, sacrifices. I mean, the reason he's not a billionaire is because he likes helping people too much.
Yeah.
Like, he's so smart and business savvy and understands psychology. The guy can make as much money as he wants, but he really enjoys the people side of things. You've seen him. He's a pretty simple guy. But why I wanted to ask you that is because, and, if someone doesn't know you, by now they could tell you kind of have, especially coming up as a salesperson, that ego, that I'm the man, I'm the guy, I do what I'm going to do. And, as your stories have kind of played out, people now realize that, right? I'm the man. So it's very unlike someone like you to get a mentor. Like, if you think about it, someone with a big ego, I'm the man, I know what I'm doing, to get a mentor. It's very, you wouldn't see that coming. Now, obviously I know you, so it makes sense because you're into personal development and growing. But I'm really saying this for the purpose of people watching. Get a mentor. But more specifically, you said it, get a mentor that's going to tell you the truth.
Oh, yes.
Like that girl you heard me talking to, I don't know if she wanted to hear what I had to say. Don't spend $400,000 on this. Do this instead. It's a little bit harder, but but that's the truth. I'm sure you want me to tell you if you wear this bracelet, you're going to be a millionaire, but I can't say that's the truth, right? With you, my dad, you and I call him Senior. He hates it, but my dad.
Yeah,
father,
I'm not even going to say it because he could hear this.
Daddy.
You can get away with it.
He'll hear.
I can't.
Daddy. He just tells you the truth, man. You specifically just tells you the truth, and how powerful is it, dude?
Yeah. Between the accountability and the authenticity, are invaluable. Right?
Yeah.
Today I'm a better man. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better friend. And I can say that 100%. And you've seen a lot of this, right? You didn't see me in my crazier days, crazy, but you've seen a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But certainly in the last 7 years, I think I've gone to the next level.
Yeah.
Meaning I can honestly say I'm a good man, right?
Yeah.
And I can say humbly that I have a lot to learn from a lot of people, especially your dad, right?
Yeah.
But that accountability and that honesty was the biggest game changer for me. I don't have any issue with telling people I lived in a car anymore. I don't have any issue with telling people I couldn't spell to save my life. Literally, spell this? No, you're going to just kill me now, right?
Yeah.
Read, use a computer. At the end of the day, right, the principles are the principles, right? It's always, not always, almost always delayed gratification, right? You've got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
You've got to be patient. You've got to be willing to get up again. You've got to find folks in your life that have proof of, if you want a result, find people that have actually done it. And be careful who you listen to, even when you find people that have done it, because oftentimes they're telling you what they're doing now, and you don't need to know what they're doing right now because you don't understand anything about what they said. When I went to go learn how to read and write again, I couldn't learn it from, right, somebody that could speak perfect and write perfect.
Yeah.
I needed to learn it from some people that never really learned. And how did they learn,
Yeah.
right? Show me some results. If there's another thing, right, from your dad.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, if you don't have the results to prove that you should be teaching me something, then don't talk to me. And certainly, I heard you talk to a client earlier. Don't give them $400K.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, so
those principles are all the same.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring that up. Ultimately, just lesson here: get a mentor. It's so important.
Right.
It pushes you so. I know me, and I know you'd agree, because my dad's my mentor as well. I just wouldn't do the things that I had to do without a mentor.
So I have as you know, right? I'm very close to I have a nonprofit. I'm very close to some folks that I work with,
Yeah.
right? And my journey, story for another day, but my journey to find some place where I could give back, not just write a check, right, was Chris had encouraged me. And when I say encourage, Chris encourages in a certain way, right? He encouraged me to go give some back, right? That gratitude piece, which is another huge piece. I mean, these are all pretty major basic principles, right?
For sure.
We'll do more to avoid pain as human beings than we will to gain pleasure.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's painful to write a check or to go give your time, right? But there's nothing more valuable. You give away your time.
Yeah.
You gave some away this morning.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got a lot of people to take care of, a lot of things to do, a lot of money to make, right? And a family at home. You gave away your time, right?
Yeah.
So it was a tough thing for me to find where I was a fit to do that, but I did it and I committed to it. And I finally found a couple places that resonated with me, and ultimately I have my own nonprofit. And through that journey, a whole new level of gratitude and appreciation, a whole new level of humble, right?
Yeah.
It can be a challenging balance for me because that arrogance is not completely gone, but that was part of my old edge, right? Relationships.
It's hard to
are
be
now,
arrogant when you're grateful,
right?
It's hard to be scared.
in the absence of gratitude. Right? You can't think of anything else but gratitude when you're in gratitude. Meaning, in the absence of gratitude, resentment, anger, frustration, fear. All that stuff that heavy weights we drag around, right? So I have my own nonprofit now. Apply the same kinds of things that I learned along the way, and especially from your father, to ladies that have seen stuff that is unimaginable to most people that are probably watching, right? Things that I wouldn't even say here, right? Seen things, and certainly, and more just as important, at least, their children have seen it. Right, on the street, and they've learned how to hustle, but with one tweak, with some accountability, with some willingness, with some appreciation, and when I say, and with some authenticity, right? I've watched ladies that I work with their children go from zero, I lived in a car, right, to $75,000 a year in 2 years.
Yeah. It's awesome.
These ladies would buckle most big tough men with the things they've seen. Principles are the same, and you brought it up. Be patient, right? Be willing to do the work. Accountability. Find people that have proof that they can help you, right? Don't just write a check. And get that mentorship wherever you have to get it. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Man, you dropped some success principles here, man. I was gonna say something. Off of what you were talking about, it kind of left my brain. Do you have any stories in the meanwhile while I remember this?
Yeah, actually, I can give you a story.
Tell me a story while
I'll give you a story.
Ask you.
So we're talking about moments, right, where you do all this work and then you have these moments, and unfortunately, sometimes these moments aren't. They aren't like the gods spoke to you, right? And you have these great visions. These moments are usually come in the form of, peeking out the door and seeing 80 people. Right? That's when they come.
The moments are in the dirt.
You earned those moments, though. You got a room full of 80 people. How many people can do that?
Yeah.
Right? So you earned it, that you did it to yourself. So, quick story, right? I was actually running 2 companies, franchise companies. And in franchise, the franchise world, franchisees, if they do really, really great, it's their fault. And if they suck, it's my fault, right? And I, by this time longer in my career, I was doing sales training. So we would have 5-day sessions. And I could stand, it got to the point where I could stand in a room, and let's digress a little bit. These people have vested everything, some of them.
To buy the franchise.
To buy the franchise, right? And not because they were necessarily encouraged to do that in franchise in general, right? They'll college funds, mortgage the house, right? They're going to buy the American dream. And in some cases, that's very smart because they know that they know statistically, or at least, right, they've got at least an idea that statistically they have a pretty solid chance of failing, right, if they don't get some things right. So it's a way to speed things up. Right? So franchising is a great thing. By the same token, statistically, there's a percentage that are going to fail no matter how good that product is.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
I could stand in a room and I could tell you in general, basically the percentage and who could potentially fail in a room, right? It was the people who didn't listen. It was the people that thought they were going to be absentee owners to get the business off the ground, right? They were going to depend on the brand, right? It was the people that had no accountability to that room, right? I know it all. I've had a business before, right? It was the people that were too scared, that shouldn't be in that room to start. They were so scared, right? That they were the words they were using, right? They hadn't done enough to be there yet.
They weren't comfortable running a business.
Exactly. So, and on the back end, I'm also the guy that spoke to them when they'd say, well, I'm going to get another loan. And I'd say, no, you're not. Here's why. Because if you're going to keep doing what you're doing, then you're just going to owe that extra $500,000 to the bank. Except you're not going to have anything. So you know you're not going to get a loan. In fact, right? And this may sound harsh, but we are going to stop doing business. Because that was the most honest thing I could do. It was sucked.
Of course.
So, humble, right? Humble.
That's the
accountability.
Truth, that's the truth.
Listen and learn and be willing to do the work. And there'll be failures along the way, right? Michael Jordan failed more than anybody else. Right? So did Ty Cobb, right? Everyone, right?
Everyone.
I've failed.
The guy that started Uber, he just got fired from Uber.
I failed at something yesterday. Story for another day, but I failed miserably, right? Just miserably. So what?
Get
so
comfortable
what?
with it. So here's what I was going to ask you. A couple more things, because I know you got to go. So really early in the podcast, and I see this from so many wildly successful. I don't just mean like, if they do it right, they're comfortable. I mean wildly successful. They're very comfortable telling the real story. Meaning, you're now comfortable, maybe you weren't always, but now you're comfortable saying I lived in a car. My dad's comfortable saying, dude, I came from Brixton. I moved to, I moved to Queens. I thought I'd made it. I was used to seeing, and he said this on the podcast last week, I'm used to seeing 10 prostitutes on the way home from school. Now I'm in Queens where someone's just going to try and mug me. This is like Beverly Hills to me. But he's proud of that. And I know before he had started really killing it in business, he told me before I was even born, I wasn't proud of that. I was almost ashamed. He tells a story about him on stage. What if people find out the truth about me, that I can't read or write, that I can't... How important, kind of a quick answer, how important is it to just embrace where you come from? Going back to Herman Gomez, my friend, man, I crawled through the gutter to get here. How important is it to take pride in where you come from, regardless of how ugly it may be?
Oh, I think it's top 5, Chris. We're only as sick as our secrets, man. You spend all that time and energy.
I've never heard that before. I like that. We're only as sick as our secrets.
It's actually none of this stuff. Anything that I know ain't mine, as you know, right? I'm not that smart.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you're quoting something.
So I'm quoting somebody else, but it's right. It and I don't mean just figuratively sick as our secrets, right? It's emotionally as sick as you can be to hide stuff.
Absolutely.
You ever told it when you were a kid, right? Did you ever tell a lie and then you had to tell another lie and then another lie, and pretty soon you don't even know the lie anymore? I think that's the garbage that most people carry around. And it is a sense of freedom to be authentic, be yourself. And by the way, when I work with ladies with children that have had tough situations, one of the very first thing I do, first they get the rules, right? And the rules are shut up, right? I don't care where you've been. I don't care about all of that stuff, right? Got it. Perfect. No cell phones. Shut up and listen, right? Now, here's the first thing I'm going to tell you. I was this, and this. I was a womanizer and a drinker and a partier. I didn't know how to spell. I didn't know how to write, right? I did, but not well, right? I was a mess up in 1,000 different ways. And I tell them the extremes of it, right? Here's what happens. They're like, oh, right? Body language. Absolute change.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Cool. So you're going to tell me the truth. Got it. Then I'll tell you the truth. And that's what happens in a relationship, right? We're friends. When you get close to somebody, right, I tell you stuff, And we laugh, right? We think it's hilarious because it is. It's funny.
It's pretty if you're a fly on the wall, you're like,
the person that thinks is the worst is you.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Be willing. That's a huge part, that authenticity.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah, I think that's so important. That's why I wanted to bring a lot of these things up, because you have so many, like, real success principles. Not, generic ones you can find in any book. Notice you didn't say think big or dream big. People know that. The real ones. Like, when you tell your real story, and I want to encourage people here for a second, find someone that you trust. It'll only work with somebody you trust. If you have any ounce that they're going to gossip about you, badmouth you, make fun of you behind your back, first off, get rid of that person. But definitely don't do this exercise with them. Find someone you trust with all your soul, that they've been real with you, and tell them just tell them your story. My dad used to have a training office in Tustin, California, and there was one. You were probably there. I guarantee you were there. It was you, me, a few other people from a special networking club, probably 5 years ago now. And I was young. I didn't have any stories, so I was just kind of sitting there, admiring everything. But it was, and that was my education on a Saturday. I'd hang out with 40-year-old men talking about business and life, and I would just sit and observe. And there was one Saturday where you guys just went around, just hanging out in a parking lot, which many have now heard the famous stories about my dad in parking lots, and you would just tell one terrible story after another. You would tell a story. You've got a few. My dad would tell a story. Yeah, this guy tried to kill me once. Another guy tell a story. I got arrested in Mexico. These are all like business people telling the worst stories of all time. That's when you truly become a good entrepreneur. Because if you're trying to BS people, if you're trying to hide some secrets, if you're trying to put on a facade that's really not real, selling is hard to do.
Yeah. You
cannot sell at your full potential because
your intention is off.
Your intention is off. Same thing with gratitude. You can't sell unless you're grateful.
Exactly.
So that's why I wanted to bring that up. So I want to encourage everyone watching, listening, find someone you trust. I don't know who that is. It could be anyone. Just someone you trust. A mentor is a perfect example. And just tell them your real story. I know people have told me stories and immediately their shoulders went down and their confidence went up.
Yep.
So I want to encourage people to do that. All right, last but not least, man, because we'll wrap up. I like to end every episode with a theory of the day, a theory of the week. Just something for people to leave with. One last, could be a success principle, something I didn't ask you yet that you wanted me to, whatever it may be. What's a theory of the day that you want people to leave with?
Same thing we started with, Chris. We're all ability and willingness, right? We're all able.
Cool.
All able. And certainly some people have more challenging circumstances than others, physically and emotionally. Understand, right? I work with them. I get it.
Yeah.
But if you have willingness, right, decide, know your outcome, have a plan, know your plan's going out the window in 30 seconds, be willing to fail over and over and over again. It only takes once, right?
Absolutely.
And you once will come. And it may be scary, and do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
But most importantly, right, never, ever, ever give up. Just be willing. Be willing to be authentic. Be willing to be humble. Be willing to be grateful. And the right teachers will come along. Situations and circumstances and people that are teachers will give you those lessons. And there may be times that you feel like Chris and I, right, you and me, when just just let it be done.
Take me.
You'll be okay.
Absolutely.
Just be willing.
I love it, man. Well, Dave, thank you for coming. This was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Good. Dropped some
Thanks for
cool
having me,
success
man.
principles, and I know a lot of my audience that maybe doesn't know you. They got a real good look at Dave Timlin, my good friend. So I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
your
having
time.
me, man.
Everyone watching, thank you for your time, your attention. I appreciate it more than you know. But in conclusion, this is Coffee Talk. We'll see you next week.